Hello and welcome back to another video. This is Gina from McGuire and I'm thankful you've stopped by. Today I am creating a card that I've had floating around in my head for some time, and I actually took the time to figure out how to make it work, and I'm hoping it's something that you'll try. I call this a spinning wheel card. So that element on the front actually spins when you turn the wheel on the side. I think it's best to look at the completed card first so you can see how it works. By just turning the little wheel on the side, the little reindeer spin around. Now you could use any images to spin around on this. In fact, a lot of lawn fawn images would be great. You could do little fish or different little animals running around in a circle. But today I thought I'd go for a holiday card. I tried many different ways to put this card together, and I'm sharing with you today what I felt worked the best. Okay, let's start with the background. This piece is a little bit smaller than 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. I'm using the Lawn Fawn Yeti or Not stamp set, which is super cute, but I'm actually only using the little snowflake images. I've put all 3 snowflakes onto one acrylic block so I can quickly stamp the entire background repeatedly. I'm using Lawn Fawn Mermaid ink on Mermaid cardstock, definitely a favorite cardstock color of mine. Now once I've covered the entire background, I also have a piece of white cardstock that is cut to 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, and that will be our background panel. If you prefer, you could make this a note card that is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. Totally up to you. I'm now using a T-ruler and a pencil to draw lines down the center. So I'm drawing a line at 2 1/8 of an inch in one direction and 2 1/8 of an inch in the other direction. Basically, I'm just trying to find the center point of that piece. Now I want to do the same on this piece, but I'm going to draw my pencil line on the back, so I don't have to worry about it showing or having to erase it. By doing on the back, nobody will ever know I did, and I can make my lines as dark as I want. So once again, I'm just drawing center lines so I have that center point. Next, we need to create a notch on the side so the person is able to turn the wheel that will add. I like to use a 1-inch circle die for this and make it so that it cuts a half circle. Really, you could use any size die, but this seems to be a good size. Get your finger on the wheel. So first I cut it center on the side of the white piece. And now I'm going to line it up with the blue piece so that I can cut in the exact same place. I like to line it up, flip it over, pop it right into the notch, and then tape onto the blue. Then run that through our die cut machine. And by the way, you can use any die cut machine for this. Next, you need something solid and circular that can be inside of your card that the spinning mechanism will spin around. Now, I chose to use a quarter because I had one sitting on my desk, but you could use a penny, you could use a washer, you could use a flat button, you could use a bunch of stacked circle die cuts, whatever you want. I just thought this quarter would be easy enough and it was right there next to me. I'm using some strong liquid adhesive and gluing it right at the center point of my background. That's why I drew those pencil lines, so I knew where to put it. Next, we need to create a ring that is slightly bigger than that solid circle element. So basically a ring that is slightly bigger than our quarter. Now I found a 1-inch circle die and a 1 1/4 inch circle die would be perfect because that 1-inch circle die is just slightly bigger than the quarter. I will tape these dies together so that I can die cut them together, which will form a ring. Now, if you have any kind of ring dies that cut rings, you could definitely use that. But I had my circle dies out, so I thought I'd go ahead and use them. And by the way, no one will see these rings, so you could die cut this out of any scraps that you may have. I put 2 pieces of tape on top just so that the tape would stay strong and it would keep holding the dies together through repeated die cutting. So there you can see the little ring. And I'm actually going to cut 5 of these rings. 4 or 5 will work for this. It depends on how thick your circle element is. I needed to stack 4 or 5 rings together to get a thickness that was slightly thicker than my quarter. We're going to glue all of these rings together, and I find that's best to do with liquid adhesive. It's really easy to glue these together. And by the way, your rings don't have to be perfect. You just want to stack them up and get a nice ring element that will spin nicely around your quarter in the center of your card. So here you can see how the ring moves freely around that quarter. Not too loose, but not too tight. Okay, next we need to create our wheel. I'm using the Lawn Fawn outside in stitched scallop circle dies. I like using a scallop die for the wheel because it's easy to grab a hold with your finger, but a regular circle die would work. I use the biggest for the wheel, and that is about 4 inches wide, so you could use a 4-inch circle if you wanted. So I die cut it from white cardstock, and that will be my wheel, but I also cut it from printer paper. The reason I cut it from printer paper is I could fold it in half, and then fold it in half again, which would allow me to find the center point of this. I want to make sure that all my pieces are centered on my card so they spin nicely in the final card. So I did the fold lines here, and just to make it easier to see in the video, I'm going to trace the fold lines with my pencil. So where these 2 lines cross is the center point of our circle. Now I'm going to hold these together with the printer paper one on top and then our die cut wheel on the back. On the center of this, I'm going to take my 1-inch circle die. It's the smallest die that fit around that quarter that we have in the center. And I'm going to center it up right there in the center. I could have drawn the pencil lines on my die cut, but by holding this printer paper over it, it works just as well. So basically, it will die cut through both layers. So now we have our white cardstock wheel with a 1-inch circle right at the center. This will fit nicely around our quarter. And by the way, if you don't want to use a quarter, but you want to use the same dimension dies, you could stack 3/4-inch circles for the center element instead of a quarter. Okay, so now we're going to glue the ring right at the center of our wheel. So I'm using strong liquid adhesive here. I think stronger is better because you want to be sure that it doesn't come undone. So I put that right on top of our wheel, and you'll see it fits nicely around our quarter still. Be sure to not adhere any of this to that white square background because we want this to be able to spin. Next, we need to create a hole in our blue background to assemble the card. This hole needs to be bigger than our ring that we created. So I'm using my 1.5-inch circle die. So if you have a circle die set, it should have these basic dimension circles in it. So after lining that up with the pencil lines to make sure it's center, I ran it through my die cut machine, and now we can assemble this. Now we want to make sure that we do not hinder that scalloped circle from spinning. So I'm just putting strong liquid adhesive on the corners. Notice I'm not getting close to the scallop edge. We do not want to glue that scallop circle in place. So I just put adhesive on those corners, and believe it or not, that's all you need. And I'm going to take the blue background and put it right on top. You could use foam tape here if you prefer, but I found this worked just fine. Okay, so I'm going to hold that in place while it dries, and you can see there's a little white trim sticking out from the blue piece. And everything moves freely. You can still spin around that quarter in the center. We next need to create the circle element that will spin around. If you look on this card underneath the reindeer's feet, there's a white scalloped circle die cut. I used that die set that I showed you earlier, and this white scalloped circle die cut is 2 inches wide. You could do bigger if you wanted to. It really doesn't matter. We need to glue this to the ring that we created so it spins along with the wheel. So I'm taking the inside die cut from our ring. This is the 1-inch circle die cut. And I'm going to die cut it from the center of our 2-inch scallop circle die cut. So this will allow us to have a hole so the quarter still shows through. However, it can be glued to our ring that we created, which you'll see me do in a moment. So I die cut the 1-inch circle from the center. And now we're going to put glue on top of our ring so we can glue this to the ring alone. You only want this to glue to the ring, not to our blue background, not to our quarter. So I'm just putting adhesive along the top of the ring. Now we're in the home stretch. Everything is really easy to come together from here. By allowing that quarter to show in the middle, we can add a sentiment in the middle that doesn't spin. Now it's time to get our fun elements ready. I'm going to use little reindeer from the Lawn Fawn Ho Ho Holiday stamp set. There are many Lawn Fawn images that would work great for this wheel spinner card, but I thought the reindeer running a circle would be fun. So I die cut a bunch of the reindeer, 5 of them, from white cardstock. And I kept the negative space and put a piece of tape on the back of one of the openings. I'm popping in one of my die cuts, and then I'm stamping the reindeer on it. Now I'm lining it up first and then stamping it with black Copic marker friendly ink. I'm using my MISTI stamping tool because this will save me a lot of time. After I've stamped one, I can remove it from that opening and pop in the next one and stamp it again. I find when I'm doing multiples of the same image, it's easier to die cut and then stamp on it than it is to stamp and line up the die with all the different stamped images. After I finished that, I went ahead and used my Copic markers to do some quick coloring. I'll list the colors that I used up here on the top of the screen, but it's pretty basic. I colored a black nose on all of the reindeer except for one. I added a red gem. Keep in mind these little images could be a variety of things. They could even be small die cuts. The sky is the limit with this card design. I also need to create a circle element with a sentiment that will go in the center of our card. This won't spin, but it will hide our quarter. I'm using the Lawn Fawn Christmas Cookie stamp set. There's a small Happy Holiday sentiment on the bottom that would be perfect in the center of this card. So I created a circle die cut that is 1.5 inches wide, and it just fit nicely at the center of that scalloped white die cut. So on this, I am white heat embossing the Happy Holidays sentiment by first stamping with VersaMark Ink, dipping it into white embossing powder, and heat setting it. Using a little foam square circle, I'm adding this right onto the quarter. So the only thing this blue circle is adhered to is the quarter itself. That way it stays still when you do the wheel, and only the white scallop circle spins. So I'll put this right at the center here. It's got a little dimension behind it, and watch this. The white scallop circle spins around it. So now we can glue our little images onto that scallop circle. I'm kind of spacing things out here, and then I'm putting a little bit of strong liquid adhesive under the feet of each of the reindeer and gluing it to that white scallop circle only. By the way, that didn't have to be a scallop circle. It could be a larger regular circle if you wanted. After all of my little reindeer feet are glued in place, I put some liquid adhesive on the nose of one of the reindeer and added a red gemstone. Now for the eyes and nose on all the other reindeer, I used a black glaze pen, which just makes it a little bit darker and gives it a little bit of shine. That makes a big difference in real life. I also used a black pen to draw an arrow on the wheel, and I did it in a few places so that the recipient will know how to use the card. So here's the completed card. You can see the little arrow on the side. You just spin the scallop wheel and all the reindeer spin around. It really works well. You could do smaller images on this if you wanted to. You could make this a 4.25 by 5.5 inch card or even bigger. Remember, you don't need to use a quarter in the center. You could use something else. That's just what I had handy. All you need to do is make sure that all the other dies are slightly bigger, and you'll be able to pull one of these together yourself. If you're interested in the products I use, they are in the description below. And in the middle here are a couple other interactive videos you might like. I know there are a million ways you could have spent your time today, and I really appreciate that you spent it with me. I hope you learned something and that you'll return again soon. Take care.